join. But again, thank you for tuning in. Thank you again for those who are joining us live on the Zoom and or watching via YouTube or social media. I am Councilmember Zachary Parker, and this monthly public safety call is an opportunity for us to hear about the many efforts underway to improve public safety across the district and in Ward 5. This month's call, we will hear from 3D, 4D, and 5D. For 3D, we have 3rd District Lieutenant Herring, who will share. For 4D, we are thrilled to have 4D Commander Lavenhouse join us. And regular now, we are also thrilled to have 5D Commander Altieri join and share the happenings in the 5th District. To kick us off, I will start with a few updates, given that it is budget time here at the council. But I always like to ground in the purpose of these calls. The videos from each of our calls live on our social media pages, our YouTube page. We also share a recap in our weekly newsletter. The purpose of this monthly call is to provide a singular place for us to coordinate on matters of public safety and to provide neighbors an opportunity to get answers to their questions. We know that there are many meetings and one-off requests regarding public safety matters, and those will continue. But we think it's important, given just the massive scale of public safety needs in Ward 5, that we provide a one-stop shop, which is what this call seeks to provide. So with that, again, I'll kick off with some updates. Yesterday, the council held its first of several votes on the fiscal year 25 budget. And there were a number of things included in the budget that I'm really proud of. Public safety wise, I would share that we funded and provided every dollar that MPD requested in the sum of about $575 million. This would allow MPD to continue to ramp up their hiring of new officers, expanding the cadet program, as well as employ civilian roles to utilize in more effective ways than officers. To put that more clearly, we will empower MPD to hire civilians to support the functions of the police force, where it may make more sense to have a civilian versus a sworn officer, given that MPD continues to ramp up personnel and attract and retain more officers. We were able to restore some $37 million in the Access to Justice grants. This is critical to provide legal services, namely for low-income residents, as they are engaged with the criminal justice system. We were able to expand and maintain our Safe Passage program. One note there, much of Ward 5 is not included in the Safe Passage program, and I know some people have thoughts. I continue to say, and I believe many here would agree, it is a both and. Safe Passage and our violence interruption work is not meant to replace the work of our officers. It is meant to complement it, and it is a preventative resource. Safe Passage, for those that may not be familiar, our Safe Passage priority areas are designated around primarily schools throughout the district, where we contract out with vendors to provide on-the-ground personnel, individuals that can support students getting to and from school safely. Much of Ward 5 is not covered in the Safe Passage program. In fact, we only have one corridor covered, which is between KIPP Collegiate, Dunbar High School, and McKinley. And this budget, I am pushing to expand the Safe Passage program to Brooklyn Metro and Fort Totten Metro. We know Brooklyn Metro is where many of our young people connect to go to school as well as go home. And while this isn't the panacea, I'm very clear on that. We do think it would be helpful. Same for violence interruption. We continue to deepen our investment there, knowing that it is a complement to the work that MPD continues to do. And we need to think about both prevention and accountability. As well as we deepened our investments for victim services, and there's more work to be done ahead of the second vote. There was a lot of talk about DCPS funding. I was glad that the chairman answered the call to address some of the central office cuts that some have flagged may undercut school security by replacing some $10 million via central office, much of which will ensure that we can maintain strong security across all of our schools. There was also deep investments via DGS to ensure that there are enhancements via locks, fences, cameras, et cetera, at our schools, parks, and rec centers across the district. I'm not going to go through all of this. You can see it on the screen, but all this to say that we continue to invest in public safety. There's more that we need to do. I continue to believe that one of the pain points for the district is around coordination. One of the things we're hoping to advance through this monthly call, but a need for greater coordination across our agencies. A few other areas I would highlight that I am focused on and where we need additional work, as I mentioned, making sure that we can secure safe passage at the Brooklyn and/or Fort Todd metro stations. We recently tragically had a young person killed at the Brooklyn Metro, and while having safe passage workers there, we can't guarantee that that would have stopped that incident from happening. Perhaps it could have, and it may have intercepted the commotion that led to that tragic incident. So more to come on that. We are following up on the school safety report that the Deputy Mayor of Education produced last year or earlier this year in response to the budget from last year, which was from a bill I introduced, and continuing to push that we can get a school alert system. So whether or not a school needs to go on lockdown or there is some emergency, we need a more effective way to communicate with parents, with community members, with daycare centers, et cetera, and HCEMA, that is a priority for them. Some of you may know my team has been leading a pilot program because, again, we believe in prevention and accountability. I continue to thank and work very closely with our MPD teams, but also know that we need to do a better job of preventing violence before it ever happens. On North Capitol Street, we've launched the Trust Builders pilot, where we are seeking to connect individuals and neighbors to resources, services, and care to disrupt cycles of poverty, addiction, and crisis. And so in June, we will ramp up this pilot so that we will have weekly engagements on North Capitol where we are doing the work, trying to connect people to care, ensuring that they are on a productive pathway and can turn away from some of these more problematic and/or violent paths. Some of the things that we have found for individuals that we've engaged with is that they need very basic things like IDs, shoes, cell phones, jobs, being connected to different agencies. And as you can imagine, it's hard when you have to zigzag across the city to secure paperwork or to get a permit or an ID or a license. And so some of what we're exploring now is how can we continue to coordinate, make it easier for these people to be connected to programs and services to just get them on the right path. And then last but not least, and I'll ask our 3D representative to talk more about this, but Russell Dunkley, we are following up on his case. You may recall he was the individual that attacked the Petite Scholars educators as they were walking with young people earlier this year, or last year rather, I'm sorry. And he was detained for a period of time based on his psychological evaluation. He was released. Per my office's request to the U.S. Attorney's Office, we were able to secure a stay-away order. We were also able to expand that stay-away order to cover all of Bloomingdale up into LaDroit Park. Unfortunately, Mr. Dunkley was spotted in Bloomingdale recently and was arrested. I in no way want to make excuses for his behavior. It is troubling. It's concerning. He is now under arrest as much as I know. But we are continuing to follow up on this and we'll continue to update the community and ensuring that he doesn't violate the stay away order, but more importantly, that neighbors remain safe. So those are some of the updates from the budget. We will have many more to share with you tomorrow in our weekly newsletter. If you're not already signed up, I would highly encourage you to do so. We can drop the link in the chat. I'm going to stop there. I'm not sure if there are any questions for me, but I'm going to just keep us moving along in the instance that there are no questions and I'm not seeing any. And we're going to kick it off with 3D. So again, I'm thrilled to welcome our 3D District Lieutenant Herring. I see the commander's Zoom tag, but I think the lieutenant is going to join us. If you could provide updates of what is happening in 3D, as well as if you have any updates on the Russell Dunkley situation, we would greatly appreciate it. And then we'll open it up for questions.
Hey, Councilman, I'm sorry. I got like 9 different meetings I'm on right now, man. So the person that was supposed to be on this meeting, unfortunately, wasn't for me. What was the last thing you said? You wanted an update on what, sir?
Yeah, just the Russell Dunkley situation. I know he was arrested for violating a stay away order in Bloomingdale. If you have any updates there.
So he's held on a psychological evaluation. So he hasn't been back out in community since the last time we picked him up.
Got it. Got it. And then any other major updates for 3D?
So nothing on the homicide. We had at number 4 Hanover the other night. We're still trying to work through that. We did, for all intents and purposes, find a little bit of video. Nothing that really gives us a whole lot of leads at this moment. But our detectives are still fresh on that case. It's only 48 hours. We've been very diligent around Monte Verde and Dunbar since the Dunbar incident. So, knock on wood, nothing else has really happened in that area. After the last homicide on the northeast side of North Capitol, I moved a mobile crime camera over to in front of Monte Verde. That seems to have kind of calmed the parents' worries down a little bit. But we've been much more involved with the elementary school probably in the last couple of weeks, just to make sure they get out of the school year, without anything, bad happening over there. Beyond that, sir, really, along that North Capitol Street corridor, as long as myself and Captain Altieri, work together, I think we're doing a pretty good job tamping the majority of the nonsense down.
I appreciate that. And Commander, I know you're stretched in. One more question just around any follow-up for the nearest or the most recent shooting or rather homicide in the Hanover area.
Yeah, so that was the one I just spoke of. We don't have any video in that case right now. We have some video from like Ring Doorbell where we can hear audio, but nothing visual right now. So the person who got our decedent in the case, he actually lives in the neighborhood. He's from the Uniblock at N Street Northwest. He's got a criminal history, drugs, guns, that kind of stuff. But we don't know who shot him or what the motive is right now. But like I said, it's an open case. We're only 48 hours into it. I anticipate they'll probably get some video within the next day or two to give us a little more information about that.
Okay, I really appreciate that. If you have questions for the commander, I would ask that you submit them. Oliver, do we have any prepared? Otherwise, I will go to our 4D team.
I think he pretty much answered the questions that we would have outside of the Dunbar High School. Is there any updates on that, the high school shooting?
Yeah, I mean, we made arrests in that case. We made 2 arrests in that case of the young men that were shooting. So beyond that, no, we don't have any other updates to that.
And I know, Commander, there was concern from neighbors, namely across the street from Dunbar, the alleyway, where it has long been reported that students are hiding out, doing drugs, all types of stuff. We have tried to work with DCPS and getting more attention there. I know you all were increasing your presence in the area. Have there been any updates around how you're going to address that alleyway or the areas around the school?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, MPD really can't be the entity that chases these kids around to hold them accountable. to go to school, and on the bigger end, bigger picture. But following that shooting, that week that came after the shooting, we picked up almost 30 truants in that 1 week, just in that block of Kirby and the alley that you're speaking of. So what that did is it started displacing them after the first 3 or 4 days of us picking them up. And we were finding them as far away as 400 block of N Street, over 500 block of P Street. So they just started hanging out further away from the school because they knew our presence had stepped up around the school. So there's really, when our officers roll up to the alley to try to stop them, to get them to become truants, to take them back to school, they just run away from us, right? So it becomes a game of cat and mouse with them. And the one thing I won't let my officers do is, we're not going to put hands on kids to forcibly stop them for something that's not a crime, right? So it's kind of a fine balance, man. I really hope that you guys are able to find some other entity within the DC government that could pick up that responsibility, because I really think we talk about, kids being scared of cops in schools. If we're chasing kids around trying to get them to go to school, that's not a good look for us, right? Like, that doesn't help with the community trust piece. So, hopefully we can work that out as we move forward in the next year.
I appreciate that, Commander. Truancy is a big focus for me and the council. For those watching, there are several bills before the council now. I highly encourage neighbors to tune in if you haven't. Share feedback with the council. I am of the belief that we need to crack down and connect young people to services. Actually, today there is a hearing on the mayor's proposed bill, which, among other things, addresses truancy, like the mayor's bill. Commander, if you could just mute for us.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
And let me mute myself, man. Unfortunately, I don't think I have the capacity to mute myself. Can you guys mute me?
Okay, I'll make sure we do it.
Yeah,
Yep, I think we're good. Thank you, Commander. The headline there, we are working to address truancy. I will be frank to say I'm not convinced that all of my colleagues think the same way about truancy. I think everybody agrees it's a problem. Right now, we have very divergent views on how to best address it. And our current system is broken, in my opinion. Right now, as the commander was alluding to, we have thousands of kids that are not showing up to school. And our system is in no way following up or imposing any type of accountability for missing school. And so as I mentioned, introduced legislation that, among other things, would tap DHS, or the Department of Human Services, to ramp up their engagement and follow-up, connecting young people and their families to programs to ensure that there is a through line there. The mayor did dedicate more money for truancy in the budget. Unfortunately, that money was cut when it came to the council. I will continue to push on this, but I continue to be deeply concerned that right now in our system, we have effectively said you can not show up to school and not much is going to happen to you or your parents. I'll leave it at that. Happy to talk more about it. But I want to turn to our 4D team. And if I could just say one more thing about the Dunbar shooting. There was recently a shift in leadership at Dunbar High School, and that will undoubtedly have an impact on how we're coordinating. We are now trying to get in touch with the assistant principal, who will now serve as acting principal for the rest of this year. We will continue to follow up with MPD. I'm glad the MPD was able to apprehend the individuals involved in that shooting incident that occurred now about a month ago or several weeks ago. But we know that it continues to be a problem, especially when school is in session. And I just want neighbors that may be online, I know there are some from that area, know that we're continuing to work on it, and we'll have updates soon. I'm thrilled to have Commander Lavenhouse. I feel really lucky. We have 3 commanders here. This is like the jackpot. Commander Lavenhouse heads up our 4th district. She won't say it, but I know she loves Ward 5, that it is included in the 4th district. The majority of Ward 4 is in the 4th district. That's why I'm saying that. And I'm thrilled to have you, Commander. Feel free to share updates. I also just want to thank the Commander. About a month ago now, we met with neighbors in the Queens Chapel community to address concerns that they had. And the Commander and her team showed a level of responsiveness that I know is really appreciated. So thank you for that, Commander. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Of course, thank you for having me. So just to give you some updates on what the Ward 5 part of 4D looks like. So these stats, hopefully everyone can see them. These are our stats for just specifically for the Ward 5 part of the 4th district. When the council member talks about how my love for the Ward 5 section, you all bring my numbers down. So I definitely love you all. But so this is what we're looking like. So for our sex abuse cases, and this is for the last 30 days. So for our sex abuse cases, we're down 67%. And that's last month or for the last 30 days of last year compared to this year, we've had 1 as opposed to 3. We have had 1 ADW or assault with a dangerous weapon, and then 3 robberies. So the robberies are down 25%. Just to go into a little bit more about that ADW. So when I was looking through the stats and seeing what that crime was, that ADW actually is the same incident as one of the 3 robberies.
I'm sorry, Commander, to interrupt. I'm hearing from people, it's hard to hear you. I hear you fine, but I'm getting notes from my team. So I would just say if you could speak closer to the mic, that would be helpful. And
a little bit better?
I will see if I get notes. Yes, I would say
Okay.
let's keep going.
So for that assault with a dangerous weapon, it's actually the same incident as one of the robberies. The victim for that assault came up after the other individuals in that case were robbed. And in that incident, the 3 first original individuals, 3 of them were sitting in a parking lot about 2 in the morning. They were approached by a vehicle full of individuals who came, and unfortunately, they announced a robbery. They began to rob those individuals. Someone who was coming to hang out with those individuals in the parking lot pulled up. The suspect turned, pointed a firearm at them and told them to leave, which they did. So that ADW is actually the same incident as one of those robberies. With our robberies, we are down 25% for this particular area of the 4th district. Although I am not happy with any crime at all, I am pleased to say that we have done great work. The officers have been working really hard to get those robbery numbers down. We ended January in the 4th district as a whole, to include this area, up 178% in our robberies. Overall, for the entire district, we are down to -7%. So we have really been out here hustling, working hard, apprehending these violent offenders to make sure that we can make the area safer for everyone. For our violent crime, we are down -29%. For our motor vehicle thefts, we are down to 59%. Theft from autos, we are up on those theft from autos, specifically in this area. And I'll get into that a little bit. And then our thefts were down -30% for an overall -24%. With those theft from autos, that is the biggest challenge for this area of the 4th district. Unfortunately, individuals are hitting a particular area either on a particular day, so like on a Saturday morning, when our homes are being serviced by service providers and breaking into their vehicles because they're leaving their purses or lunch bags in the vehicle. We're still seeing that. Been working with the team to make sure that we're putting flyers on the windows reminding neighbors not to leave any of those items in the vehicles, but we're still seeing a lot of it. So that is something that we're continuing to see and something that we're also continuing to work on. When we talk about major ward issues, things that we're focused on here in the 4th district, but that part of Ward 5 as well, is violent crime and property crime. So although our violent crime is down, it's still a major focus of us because we don't want it to spill over from the other areas of the 4th district into this particular area. That's pretty much all I have, besides the fact I do want to talk about things that we are doing. We are continuing to do in the 4th district, like the other districts, our retail theft operations. We have had successes, not necessarily in this particular area, but in the 4th district as a whole. And we're just started working on our package theft operations, like Commander Altieri has been working on in his district. It hasn't really been an issue for my particular area, but if it becomes an issue, and to make sure that it doesn't, we're beginning to work on them as well. That's what I had prepared to present, and you have.
No, I really appreciate that. I mean, the headline for me is that we're seeing significant declines year to date from last year, but also over the last month in violent crime in 4D, which is a great headline. For me, I know last year was an anomaly, so it still gives me heartburn, to your point. Like one violent incident is one too many, but I do just want to applaud and thank you, Commander, as well as all in 4D for their hard work. Can you just underscore the difference in the numbers between motor vehicle theft and theft from an auto, as there was just some discrepancies there? I know last year we were at an all-time high for motor vehicle thefts, I think, would be the right classification, and that has seen to significantly decrease. And so what do you think is also behind that?
Absolutely. So I think that, well, I'm positive that as Commander Altieri has done with the air tags, and we had air tag giveaways, I think that the updates that they've done on the Hyundais and Kias has definitely made a difference. I know we've been pushing aftermarket alarms. I know lots of community members have done that, so they're hearing the alarms, as well as the communication between the officers and management, and then the community members. They're seeing things and they're saying something. They're calling us and letting us know so that we can get people in the area to combat that crime. So I truly believe it's all of those things that are making a difference, which driving down that number in motor vehicle theft. And the difference from the motor vehicle theft and theft from auto, just breaking into a vehicle, seeing an item that you want, breaking into that vehicle and taking it. I think the struggle with that, although we as a district are down in our theft from autos overall, I think the main thing, or the main takeaway, should be we just have to make sure that we're not leaving things in.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. I see there's a question in the chat. Has there been an arrest regarding the homicide that occurred in the 5000 block of South Dakota Avenue? Yes.
There has not at this time.
Okay.
No.
And that was a very tragic incident. And so if neighbors have any information, you can reach out to the MPD tip line. We will drop that in the chat. But right now there has not been an arrest. Commander, can you also just talk about one or two of the things that you are doing in the 4th district as it's getting warmer outside? We know summer is when we anticipate crime to pick up. And what might we share with neighbors to give them solace that we are ramping up?
Yeah. So as the temperature has changed, we took advantage of what we do as a matrix 2 times a year with officers. They get to change their schedule, or to change the area that they may patrol, maybe get better days off. So something that we prepared for the summer was we actually moved some of our roll calls back to coordinate with the activity that we're seeing, so that they're not shifting or doing shift change during those times where we're seeing that activity. So that's one of the main things that I did as a commander in the district, to make sure that we had that coverage and a greater overlap, which means that there's more officers on the street for a certain period of time. With that, working with our captains, Captain Hallahan, Captain Chapman, what they're doing is taking those additional officers, and something that the community has been requesting is, hey, we want to see them on foot more. We want to see them on bike more. Now that we have that overlap for the summer, we'll be able to put more of the officers out on foot, out on their bicycles to patrol some of these neighborhoods to make sure that they're addressing that activity. So those are some of the things that we've done in the 4th district. And of course, we're always adjusting to whatever trends we might see, but we're really focused on it and ready to adjust where needed.
I really appreciate that. I am not seeing other questions. If you have them for our 4D commander, feel free to drop them in the chat. Commander, I appreciate the work that you're doing. We are going to keep hoping that the Ward 5 part of 4D remains relatively quiet in compared of things, and just know that there's still a bit of work to do. So thank you. Next up, we have our 5D commander, Altieri. Commander, I'm going to turn it over to you to take it away. Among the things you share, and I know you're probably already teed up to do so, if you can shed light on 2 of the big news stories that we've heard out of 5D, the bust in the Carver Langston community, as well as more recently in the Trinidad community, as a result of greater coordination with federal partners and MPD under your leadership, Commander, that will certainly ensure there's greater safety for Ward 5 residents. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm sorry I'm in my car. I'm just out checking my beats. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sylvan Altieri. I'm the commander for the 5th District. My information's in the chat. You got my cell number in there, my email address, and I also included a couple other numbers I'll get to by the end. Just real quick, I just want to let you guys know overall right now what we're looking at 5D crime-wise. Violent crime for the 5th District is a total, and that's Ward 5, Ward 6, and part of Ward 1. I'm sorry, Ward 7 and part of Ward 6 that we have in our district is down 28%. Property crimes down 9%. Robberies and carjackings are down 26%. Motor vehicle thefts are down. Homicides are down. ADWs are down, which is assault with a dangerous weapon. Every crime is down in 5D with the exception of theft from autos. That is the one crime that's plaguing us right now. That's a difficult one to try to police. Basically, it's a crime of opportunity. People are out looking for stuff, trying to find something in a car. And it can be different groups of people. So it could be anything. You could leave like a pack of Hall's menthol cough drops on your car seat and someone will break in to take those. So, and even if you do everything you're supposed to do and don't leave stuff in the car, people still might break in if they're just vandalizing vehicles. So it's a challenge, but I can talk a little bit about that, what we're trying to do in a minute. But I really want to talk about, as the council member said, the 2 operations that were conducted in 5D. So, Violent Crime Suppression Division is an excellent division we have. That is the division that deals with major narcotics, prostitution, gun recovery, and everything else in the city. That's our sole plainclothes unit in the city. They work with confidential informants. They work with federal agencies as well. And that's kind of how this all came together. So they partnered with the DEA and the FBI on 2 long-term investigations. One was in Carver Langston, one was in Trinidad. Now, the interesting thing about this case is that this is the first time ever, and I think the U.S. Attorney touched on it, this is the first time we've ever sort of went after 2 groups at the same time that are actually in conflict. For those of you who live in the Trinidad or Carver Langston area, I'm sure you know about the conflict. It's historical. It's been ongoing. I've been here for 24 years. It's probably been going on since before I've gotten here, where we have 2 neighborhood crews that have been going back and forth with other crews from other parts of the city kind of jumping in from southeast and southwest as well. So, which leads to a lot of violent crime and shootings and everything else. So what happened is they really decided they wanted to try to go after both these groups simultaneously. What they did is a series of undercover buys. They bought drugs, they bought weapons, they bought a lot of different stuff off of these groups, built a really good case, and ended up doing a major takedown. Now, the thing with these cases are, and I will touch on Trinidad, because I know when I was meeting with Trinidad neighborhood prior to this arrest, they kept saying, when is Violent Crime Suppression Division going to do something here like they did on Kennedy Street in 4D? And my only response was, well, if they were, you're not going to know. So in the whole time we've been doing the investigation, this investigation has been almost a year long. And the reason for that is just really safety of the people that are involved. We can't very well tell people we're doing a secret investigation. But long story short, this ended up netting us 26 arrests. Now in the news, you probably saw 24, but we caught another one of the main suspects down on 11th Place over the weekend. And actually, it was great. Not only did we get him for this indictment, he had enough cocaine on him for us to charge him separately again with distribution of cocaine. So that's to be a good case. And then one of the individuals had a relative who called me and they turned themselves in at 5D. So we have 26 total now for this. 35 firearms were recovered and an enormous amount of ammunition, fentanyl, heroin, crack, powdered cocaine, and marijuana, and liquid PCP, and over $150,000 in cash. Now that's the cash that just was recovered. That's not saying other cash that might be found when they're starting to go through people's accounts, bank accounts, and everything else. That's $150,000 in cash. So this was a very successful operation. What does it do? Well, it takes a lot of the major players off the street. So not only does it disrupt the narcotics trafficking and drug trafficking, it disrupts the violence. What are we doing now as a district? We're still working in those areas. My request is if you have an area where you think things are going on, in Councilmember Parker, you've heard me put this out a lot, like saying, hey, if you want us, we'll come down. We actually have people, folks, that let us come sit in their house and watch people sell drugs so we can make arrests. But some people don't feel comfortable with that. I completely understand. If you don't, and you have a camera, a Ring camera or camera we can get access to watch this activity in real time, we can make arrests that way. And our plan in the Trinidad area, as well as the Langston area, is hopefully find people that can work with us, give us access to that equipment so we can watch these drug sales in real time and make arrests. It's very imperative with the drug investigation, if you're trying to get a distribution case, that you see it in real time and you're able to make an arrest in real time. It's good for us to get videos and things like that. I encourage citizens, please, if you have video of crimes, send them to me. I'll distribute them out to my crime suppression team. But what those videos are good for, if it's after the fact, is really for us to say what patterns are going on, who the players are, what time the delivery might be, but really to get our teeth into it and really be able to make distribution lockups. It's so important to have real-time information. So that's just one of the things, that we did recently that I'm super happy about. I know Commander Levenhouse touched on package theft. Sometimes I think people say, why is that important? I guess if you're someone getting your package stolen, it's a big issue. We get a lot in community meetings. So the Amazon Locker program, which is a program I piloted when I was in the 6th district, is now throughout all 7 districts. Every district in this city has an Amazon Locker. If you want to get stuff delivered there, it's an option you can take. It gives you a safe place to do your pickup from 24 hours a day. And the thing that's nice is, projected wise right now, the numbers so far, it looks like approximately, and this is a rough number, it's about 1,000 packages a month being delivered to the 7 districts total. So that's 1,000 packages a month that aren't going to fall prey to theft. So that's one of the things we're doing. The other thing is the decoy package theft operations, where we're actually working with community members who are nice enough to let us use their property to throw a decoy package on their porch with a tracking device in it and make arrests that way. So it's a good deterrent as well. So those are a couple of the things we're doing on that end. The only other thing I really wanted to touch on, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, is this. We get a lot of complaints about illegal dumping. We get a lot of complaints about people staying in abandoned buildings and things like that, trash, abandoned vehicles, things that aren't necessarily an MPD issue, but we can assist with. When I was in the 6th district, my former commander, Commander Habibullah, who's now retired and works at CSOSA, I guess before her, they started an environmental crimes unit. And that unit specifically worked with DPW and DDOT to deal with these environmental crimes. When I came to 5D as an inspector, I wanted to do the same. I couldn't do it, of course, until I took over. Once I took over, the problem is staffing. I don't have enough, we don't have enough people right now to have a whole unit just doing environmental crimes. However, I have a bunch of really dedicated officers that are willing to take the training and do this as part of their normal job. So in addition to, we do that a lot at 5D because we're trying to do things, we're trying to keep violent crime down while at the same time doing with package stuff. Keep violent crime down while at the same time dealing with retail theft. This is important. These are all things we have to look at it as a whole. It has to be a global view of what this crime is like, right? So with environmental crimes, we have a lot of officers who are willing to do this. We got them trained, we got them cross-trained at my old district, and they now know how to deal with environmental crimes specifically. We have cameras that we can put in that are trail cameras to look for illegal dumping. They have networking through the other organizations so they can really go in there and help facilitate get things to getting done quicker. If you have an issue like that, The email address for the Environmental Crimes Unit is in the chat under my information. Feel free to send an email, let them know what you have, give them as much detail as possible. One of these officers will get back to you and see what they can do. So far, it's been pretty successful. We've had several arrests for unlawful entry at these boarded up houses that we've done with Department of Housing. We've had success getting garbage and tires removed, and we've had success in really doing some investigations and some illegal dumping. So if you have anything like that, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We'll be happy to take care of it. Now, as far as our one increase in the district, which is theft from autos. Theft from autos is tough, like I said. This is what we're seeing right now. A lot of our theft from autos are driven by Thursday through Sunday activity in our club zones. Now, it's not the club's fault. It's not the club's fault people are coming to go to the club. That's not it at all. But a lot of times people do things like this. And if you're doing this, I suggest you don't do it anymore. A lot of times what people are doing is they're taking their purses and they're putting them in the trunk of the car, right? You'll see a group of I once saw a group working club zone of 8 ladies get out of the car. All of them threw their purses in the trunk. The individual on the corner hanging out, who was an unhoused individual in this case, waited till I left, waited till they left, went in, broke into the car, took all the purses, right? So that's one of the things people are doing. So what we're doing Thursday through Sunday now is we've increased our presence in those areas. And it's, again, because what happens is people park, they want to save the parking money. So they'll park further up, say, Bladensburg Road, or they'll park further over on Lincoln. They're trying to save a buck parking wise, but the problem is they're parked in areas where people know, hey, this is the night there's going to be folks here. I can go down and break into a car, I'm going to commit a robbery. So we're really trying to increase our presence there. We're working with the nightlife detail to do more effective policing of the area. And I think that's going to really help improve this. The reason also for the motor vehicle theft reduction, if I could just piggyback off Commander Lavenhouse, I really believe part of it is just the people themselves, the community. I don't think it's all us. I think we put out enough information saying, hey, if you have a Hyundai or Kia, come get a club. Or if you have a Hyundai or Kia, go ahead and get a patch done to the car to correct this flaw in the ignition. And I think that's what really helped, because if you look at us, particularly, if you look at the way our crime tracked last year, we had a reduction up until June of violent crime, but it started to pick up a little bit in May robbery-wise. And if you look at the reason, you see robberies, but at the same time, you see motor vehicle thefts going up. And that's because last year, a lot of our stuff was hitting the same time. Yes, I know there's an uptick in Fort Lincoln as well. So Fort Lincoln, that's opposite of the club zone day. So we have had an uptick in Fort Lincoln. The problem with Fort Lincoln is there's a lot of cul-de-sacs up there. So we patrol the cul-de-sacs, but they kind of, we can't be in every single one. And unfortunately, it's crime of opportunity. It's tough. So Captain Merrill's team has increased presence up there. I wish it was an easy way up, an easy fix up there, like dropping a crime camera. And the problem is if we put a crime camera on one cul-de-sac, they're going to move to the other one. So really, our best bet up there is visibility. And also our best bet up there is the community just letting us know if you see anything. We always say if you see something, say something, but it's a really good statement. If you see people hanging out and it seems unusual for reasons that seem unusual, like it's late at night, some guy's walking around, he appears to be looking in car windows, definitely do the text tip line, definitely call 911. Don't call the watch commander because the call doesn't get recorded. And I'll tell you why that's important. And the second reason is we don't dispatch for safety reasons over the watch commander phone. But if you call 911, or if you go ahead and call or do a text tip line in, it tracks those calls. That helps us when we're looking at things to do, like say, put up a drug-free zone to help maybe disable this a little bit. The more calls we have in a space, the more we can justify putting resources into that area. So that is super helpful. Again, make sure it's for the right reasons, but if you see someone acting suspiciously, let us know. And don't think we're going to come out and harass people randomly. If you see a car, and I want to just throw this out here because it's summer, and I haven't seen any so far, knock on wood, but last summer we were sort of plagued by this. We had a lot of robberies from vehicles where people were sitting in the car on the end of, say, the cap of the curb, waiting for someone to walk by and then robbing them. And it would be 4 to 6 people in the car. They would sit there. You would see this on a Ring camera. They were sitting there for an hour. So my advice to the community is if you see something like that, call it in. Now, don't think we're going to come and drag people out of the car and harass them. We're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is when we have, that'll be a priority 2 call. So once our priority calls are over, we're going to come out. We're going to run the license plate of that vehicle and see what's going on. So the reason that's important is most people out committing crimes aren't taking their own car. Is it possible? Sure. Does it happen a lot? Not really. Usually it's a stolen vehicle or stolen tag, right? So we're going to come out, we're going to run the tag and go from there. A lot of times it is something like simply a neighbor who likes to sit in their car. We have that. We've had a couple instances like my grandpap used to like to smoke. My grandma he smoked Dutch Masters. And if you're all familiar with that cigar, it's horrible. So he would go sit in his old Cadillac with no air conditioning and smoke year round when he was at home. That was just kind of the way it is. So it could be something like that too. But it really helps if you call and let us know, because we have had a couple instances where we've come out and lo and behold, we end up getting 4 people in a stolen vehicle that if they were up there just sitting, they might be up there for nefarious reasons as well. The other thing we're seeing this year is we're seeing less robberies from vehicles. I know Councilmember Parker, you and I had very robust talks about that last year. But I really think through the education and through the efforts of the community, as well as the efforts of MPD and Hyundai Kia, I think that's kind of what's driven that down. So now we're seeing more on-foot robberies. Most of our robberies still appear to be committed by juveniles. Not that all juveniles are committing crime, but that just seems to be kind of what's driving the robberies. Some of them robbing each other. So what we're doing with that is really increase our presence at school arrival and dismissal at some of our schools that were really targeted. We're also, much like Kim Brenda Butler was talking about, really focusing on truancy. You know, the problem with truants is, yeah, we can't really, we don't want to chase a kid and end up, tackling a kid to be truant, but we want to kind of let them know we're in the area as well. And it's not just because we think kids are committing crimes. A lot of these kids are becoming victims of crimes. If you look at the statistics over the year for people getting robbed around McKinley Tech during school, it was mostly students being robbed by other juveniles. So part of the reason that curfew and truancy is super important is to make sure kids are where they're supposed to be so they're not becoming a victim of a crime. And the other thing I ask, if there's any parents on here, if you do have kids, I'm not a parent, so I'm not telling you how to parent, but if you do have kids, you might want to think about what you're sending them to school with. A lot of these kids will go online if they get like a Prada shoes or something, and they'll be putting it on Instagram, showing the receipt. And people follow that. And that sometimes leads to some of our robberies. So I'm not saying don't be fashion forward. It's awesome. Go for it. But at the same time, maybe save that for not school. Maybe that might help a little bit. And the other thing is we had new cameras installed. So Bladensburg in New York has a camera. 4th Street in Morris has a camera. Oren and Neal has a camera, and P in Florida. And we're going to reassess every week. We look at data for the cameras to see where we should go with the next round. Now, the camera placement is not based on how much a community calls asking for a camera, how much a community likes working with us. Unfortunately, it's based purely on statistics of violent crime and sounds of gunshots. So that's really what we base it off of. But we are looking every week to make sure we're reassessing it if there's any other places where we have a need for these cameras. We're supposed to be getting more cameras in, so we'll be picking more spots shortly to do those as well. Other than that, council member, I don't have anything. I go on too long. Usually Oliver's here to cut me off. So I'll just shut up. And if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
No, thank you, Commander. And, we do have a couple of questions for you. I want to underscore how big of a deal these busts were that in Carver, Langston, and Trinidad. For neighbors, the district continues to have an opioid crisis where now more than 500 people last year died due to overdose. That is in large part because fentanyl is everywhere. And as the commander alluded to, a lot of these drugs are coming from these organized crime rings, and because of the commander's leadership and efforts with federal partners, we were able to disrupt 2 of those very successful rings. And so hopefully that will save lives and bring a bit more peace to neighbors in Carver, Langston, and Trinidad. So I just want to underscore how big of a deal that is. And I just want to say thank you again, Commander, for your work on that. There are 2 questions. One is from Isadora. What is MPD doing to address the influx of dangerous moped drivers? I've nearly been hit in a major crosswalk on multiple occasions. I regularly see mopeds driving against traffic in the Dave Thomas Circle.
Yeah, aren't those the worst, the mopeds? The mopeds just, that is, I thought for years nothing could be worse than the quad runners and the dirt bikes. But that's usually like a seasonal thing, and it's usually for a day, and it's bad. But yeah, the mopeds are definitely an issue. And it's a great question. The department does recognize it's a problem. What we've been doing, we find that not all, but many of the folks driving the mopeds, at least in 5D, are coming from our new citizens, our migrant communities. So we have been working very closely with migrant services to try to educate people on what they can and can't do on the mopeds, on licensing and registering the mopeds, on having a driver's license, on driving safely. So we have been doing that. What the department's doing as a whole is we really took a look at the situation and we are trying to develop more of a plan. We had a meeting actually last week on this with all the districts got together on how to deal with the mopeds. And what we're really doing is really try to do more enforcement. My district has started to lock people up for no permit now with the mopeds because, with the size, certain engine, you need the size to get it. I know the 2D and 3D have a huge moped problem as well, and they've actually been seizing the ones that aren't registered. So we are trying to go with more of a targeted enforcement now, making sure that, hey, these laws are being followed. Now, as far as if somebody's driving it safely in traffic and things like that, much like with the dirt bikes, we'll attempt to stop that individual, but we're not going to pursue someone on a moped or on a motorcycle in traffic. I mean, we're not allowed to pursue anyone for traffic anyway, but definitely with that, it causes a risk, not just to the moped driver, but I mean, I tell the story of Councilman Parker's probably heard it before, but I've told this before. When I was in 6D, I went to chase a guy on a dirt bike years ago, and he ended up getting up on the sidewalk and like flying down Minnesota Avenue. And this was like noon with a bunch of people out. So it really creates a hazard. So really our plan is to target enforcement, the ones that people that stop, target enforcement, the ones that are not registered, and it could keep trying to continue to education. I think that's going to be the best way to try to bring this down. And it's going to be a challenge, but the department as a whole is very aware of this problem and really is trying to be proactive.
Thank you for that. And I would just flag that two of my colleagues have introduced legislation, Councilmember Nadeau and Allen, the Motorized Vehicle Registration Accountability Amendment Act of 2024, which seeks to bring some order to mopeds. I'm not pretending as though that's going to fix all of these issues, but this bill, if enacted, would require those that lease and or sell mopeds to register them. And that is part of the work that the commander is working with the migrant office on as well. But it is a problem, and it's something that I've seen. I've seen the mopeds weave in and out of traffic. And so more to come on that. If you are Commander, what should they do if someone is seeing someone driving recklessly via moped? Is that something they should text via the tip line, or what should they do?
Yeah, you can always call that in. I mean, you can call 911 to call it in. You can text it in. But we'll get a call called aggressive driver. Generally, by the time anyone gets to those calls, the person's probably not there. But there always are times when we are close by and we can't get there. So I always recommend calling in. Look, our job is to serve the community. We can't always do it probably as quickly and as fast as it was quickly and in the time the community might like, but at the same time, that's our responsibility. So I say it's best to call stuff in, and have us try to hold up our end by getting there in a timely manner, and dealing with the situation. So if you see something like that, yeah, definitely you can call 911. You could, if you just want to text it in, say it's a chronic problem, like you have a particular spot where you see this all the time, right? You constantly see mopeds driving recklessly in this one area. Yeah, just text it in and let us know so that way we can try to put a focus on that area.
Yep. And even if they aren't caught, as the commander alluded to earlier, there would be a tracking of that call. And so MPD can see if they're getting a lot of calls at this intersection, maybe they should scope it out and maybe monitor it a bit closer. So still report it. There was another question from Sarah in Trinidad. As a Trinidad resident, I have experienced an increase in aggression from drivers, disregard for stop signs, threatening violence toward pedestrians, crazy speeding. Are there any efforts to address these issues in Ward 5? And I know there have been some joint efforts that you've led, Commander, traffic safety wise, but what would you say?
Well, yeah, I mean, there are, and that's a good question. There actually are. So first of all, just so you know, 5D, we've led the city last year, and we're currently leading the city right now in number of NOIs issued, which is notice of infractions or tickets. I have a very dedicated traffic unit. Again, unfortunately, due to staffing and trying to focus on all, we have to focus on everything. It's only 2 people, but they write more tickets probably than anyone in the city. They're very focused on safety. If you have a particular area Like, let's say you have a stop sign that you constantly see people running through. Let me know and we can add it to the rotation. And what we have to do because of, staffing capacity, we have to focus on things in a circular manner where we'll go to one area for a day, we'll go to another area for a day, we'll move on to another area for a day, like that. So we have a dedicated unit that does it. We also encourage our officers to do as much traffic as possible just because we want people to be safe. I myself do traffic, which I gotta quit doing that because I don't have a body worn camera, and I guess I'm open for complaints. So if I ever pulled any of you over, you can get me on it because I don't have a camera with me. I'm gonna start carrying one. But we try to encourage our members to stop people, even if it's not to write a ticket, but even if it's just let them know we're out there and try to educate them on what's going on. So yeah, we are dealing with traffic, we are focusing on it. I wish I had more people to put at it. I do not, unfortunately. But if you have a location where you think, hey, this is a particular spot this is happening, shoot me an email. I'll talk to Teddy Gay. He runs my traffic unit, and he'll definitely make sure he gives some attention to that area.
Awesome.
Also, if you could let us know the time of day you think it's happening the most, that can help us with the deployment.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Commander. I would just plug here, related to traffic safety. It is a key priority for me. I have led pop-up efforts with DPW to crack down on cars with numbers of tickets. We even found an illegal tag in Bloomingdale and was able to get their car off the street. But the plug I wanted to provide was for our South Dakota Avenue study that we're going to kick off tonight. There will be an in-person meeting also on Saturday. Some of you may be asking, why are we bringing this up? Because I see traffic safety very much as part of our public safety apparatus. And the South Dakota roadway is a very dangerous one. It leads in a number of metrics for Ward 5 and being one of our most dangerous arterials. Many of you may know Ward 5 last year led the district in fatalities, and often Ward 5, 7, and 8 lead the district in terms of traffic violence and fatalities. Last year, I was able to secure money in the budget to improve safety on Rhode Island by bringing a road diet. Tonight, DDOT will kick off its engagement with neighbors to ask what would they like to see on South Dakota? How can we improve safety there? And there will be an in-person session on Saturday. I'm going to ask my team to drop information in the chat. If you are interested, I highly encourage you to come. You may not live near South Dakota, but chances are all of us here have driven down South Dakota at one point or another, or will. And I'm really looking forward to making sure that we could bring increased safety to that corridor. There is a lot of misinformation out there, but the headline I want to leave you with is the goal is to increase safety on South Dakota, namely by reducing the number of speeding cars that can hit a person, hit a kid, and cause a lot of damage. So I'll stop there. We'll drop the information in the chat so you can sign up, but wanted to plug since we got a couple of questions about traffic. I'm not seeing any other questions. Oliver, do we have any other questions for Commander Altieri or any of our other guests?
Yes. So, could you provide an update on the sounds of gunshots that happened on Chancellor's Row over the weekend?
Yeah, that's an odd one, actually. Thank you for asking. So, yeah, so it actually happened over, a little bit away from Chancellor, right on the border. But so we got tons of gunshots on one of the nights, and it was like 20 rounds. So we went out, we collected shell casings, and those were in an alley. The weird part about it is there was no property damage at all, and there were no victims showing up at any hospitals. So then the next night, the following night, we had sounds of gunshots again. We went out, and this was in front of the building. So it was behind the building in the alley one night. The other night, it was in front of the building. This was 7 rounds. Both of these were fairly early in the morning, especially the most recent one. We recovered 7 rounds. And again, no property damage, no one showing up at the hospital. And the thing is, like, when you look at that alley, you literally are almost surrounded by homes. You have stuff everywhere. So I don't know. I mean, obviously, because it happened 2 days apart, it's not people shooting at each other, because we couldn't find anyone shooting. We couldn't find like 2 piles of casings or anything. But I don't know if they're discharging up in the air or not. We're trying to get video from some of the apartments up there in the alley, especially to sort of get a better handle on it. Because, we are concerned about it because with the homicide there last year, and, we obviously don't want a repeat of any of that sort of violence. So we're making sure we're doing enhanced patrol up in that area. I told my folks to drive around with their lights on. So if you see police lights, I'm not trying to irritate any of you, but I want you to know we're up there. So we're definitely doing that. But it is definitely an interesting thing right now. If we're trying to get more video to see if we can see any sort of exchange of gunfire, or if it's people discharging up in the air, if we can find out where they're going so we get a search warrant and get the guns. But, it is on our radar. We all are focused on it. We just don't have any information as to a motive that's driving it at this time. Yeah. And with the camera thing, if I could just add, if any of you all have cameras, so we have the Real-Time Crime Center, which I know the council member loves the Real-Time Crime Center. It is very good. And one of the things with the Real-Time Crime Center, we have something called Camera Connect. And what that is the ability for us to have access to your cameras that are outside your home. Now, not to do what I was talking about earlier, a drug OP or something, but let's say, I'll get a good example, like the sounds of gunshots. So that sounds of gunshots, if we had somebody, say, in that block that had a camera, RTCC, the Real-Time Crime Center, to access to, as soon as that call came out, they would get an alert, Real-Time Crime Center, and they could start watching that camera in real time. And if there's another camera further down the block, they can start watching that one, and further down the block, they start watching that. And the great thing about this is traditionally cameras were always something we used after the fact. After the fact, we'd use the cameras to see who the suspect is. After the fact, we try to get a lookout for the vehicle. The thing that's great about this Camera Connect is we can watch in real time. And I have actually seen this in action for one of our robberies for a motorcycle. It was amazing. Like, the robbery happened on Benning Road. RTCC got up on the cameras all along there. They were able to track the robbers to an alley over by Carver Langston. Our guys were able to go over there, make an arrest, get the motorcycle back. So it's a great tool. It's not like in Europe where they're monitoring the cameras constantly, monitoring activity, or they're not just going up on your camera randomly, but it's enabling us to really do things in real time. So I have a link in this, the mpdc.dc.gov/camera connect. If any of you have house cameras and you're interested in that, I really suggest reaching out. It's a really great tool. You can do for your business, you can do for your home. And again, we're not going to be coming to your house and doing anything. All it does is afford us the opportunity. A robbery happens, sounds of gunshots happens, a shooting happens. We can get up on the cameras and start tracking to see if we can find the suspects in real time. And that particular robbery with the motorcycle, I mean, it was amazing just listening to the Real-Time Crime Center telling the units, hey, listen, the guy just turned left here. They just turned right here. I mean, it just walking them right to him. It was amazing. It was sort of like what we do with the helicopter, but we didn't have to get the helicopter up. We didn't have to wait for the helicopter. The helicopter can't always fly in bad weather. With these cameras, I'm telling you, it's a really great resource. So I really recommend it to anyone who has cameras.
Yeah.
Thanks, Commander.
One more question that we have, and I'm just going to shift it over to the drug-free zones,
Yep.
because I know that you've done a few of them in 5D. Could
Mhm.
you speak on how successful those drug-free zones have been?
Sure. So actually, we're doing a run right now. It's in the Rosedale area. It is, it goes from Gales up 17th to H, down 19th, back to Gales. So the drug-free zones are interesting. So I think the way we're doing it now, I really like. I was here when we did the original drug-free zone, which is we would just show up if there were 3 people, would tell you had to leave. Now I think it's monitored better. I think it's controlled better. So what happens is with the drug-free zones, we find an area that either has a lot of violent crime being robberies and shootings, or it has a lot of what's called dangerous crime, which is people in possession of weapons, or it has drug crimes, drug arrest, or, this is the key, complaints for quality of life crimes. Citizens calling in people selling drugs, people calling in people using drugs, people calling in people drinking. That type of activity is tracked. Based on that data, we decide which zone to put people in. So I think it's fairly successful. It's not something that's a permanent thing because, again, staffing wise, we have to move it around and it requires officers to be there 24/7, right? And we do hourly checks with our officials to make sure they're where they're supposed to be. But what it does is it disrupts. So you have people that are maybe using drugs in a certain area. It disrupts that activity. It kind of throws everybody off their game. Plus, it gives us an enforcement ability we do not normally have when it comes to loitering. So, you know, there's no loitering law in DC. But in a drug-free zone, if we can reasonably articulate, hey, you know, this is activity consistent with drugs, maybe we see hand-to-hand transactions or something like that, you can tell people, look, you got to go. And we're the only district right now, I believe, unless someone's had one since, that actually has an arrest for failing to move on from a drug-free zone, because we told 3 guys they had to go based on the activity. 2 of them were acting as a lookout in an area where we have a lot of high drug sales. They left. The 3rd guy decided not to leave. We ended up placing him under arrest. And when we did, he ended up having a fugitive warrant too out of Maryland. And we've had several arrests in the areas. I think it's a really good tool. Again, like everything else, I think it has to be in combination of things working together. I don't think one thing is the be all end all, but what I really like about what's happening with the council, and especially Councilmember Parker's office, as well as with the DC police right now, there's a lot of forethought going into what we can do as a group and what sort of efforts we can put together. So instead of just throwing all our eggs in one basket and saying, hey, we're just going to focus on AHOD like we used to do, you know, we're really trying to look at an overall view. And I think that's what's going to be successful. I think it's going to take time, but right now I think it's pretty, the drug-free zones are good. And the thing I like about it too is the way it's set up now, you know, with body worn cameras and everything else, it's good because it's less chance for abuse. You know, I'm always concerned about that. I don't want anyone's rights to be violated. I don't want to be an occupying force in a neighborhood, you know, so it really helps control that too, by the way it's regulated. That's my long answer, Oliver. I'm sorry.
Yep. And we also got one question that we got from a neighbor in regards to the Camera Connect DC. She asked, would the homeowner be notified when MPD accesses the camera?
That is an amazing question. I do not know the answer to that, but I will find out and let Councilmember Parker and Oliver know, and I'm sure they'll share it on their stuff. Or if you want to email me separately, ma'am, my email address, I'll find out an answer for you. And again, just so y'all know, it's only your external cameras. We're not interested but the inside of your house or anything like that. I know some people have them inside, but I don't know externally if they call you and tell you or not. I really don't know. I have an answer to that. I apologize.
Awesome. And there's a shout out, Darren, from the NOMA bid said, just want to thank Commander Altieri for his deliverance of QR check-in codes for our businesses along with other efforts he has initiated in our community. So your work is appreciated, Commander.
Well, NOMA Bid is a wonderful, wonderful partner. They are amazing. I cannot sing their praises enough. As far as for those of you who don't know, the bids are like organizations made up of businesses and things like that in a certain area. NOMA Bid is fantastic. Fantastic.
Yes, I would agree. Oliver, I think we don't have any other questions. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Well, I believe in giving time back. We're a little early, but we were short on questions today. I want to thank again our 3 commanders, our 3D Commander Bodler, our 4D Commander Lavenhouse, our 5D Commander Altieri. I encourage everyone to continue to stay engaged with us. We are just about 2 weeks or so from our second budget vote. There's a lot that can change. We will be sure to share in tomorrow's newsletter how we won big for the district, as well as Ward 5 and other things I'm concerned about. I also encourage neighbors to stay tuned for discussions around truancy. I am concerned. I think we need to really pivot on our approach, and I just don't believe there's enough action right now. The chairman has committed to holding a hearing later this fall, but it's worth noting truancy is out of control right now. So more to come on that. And last but certainly not least, as I mentioned, we will have our kickoff for the South Dakota Avenue improvement discussion with DDOT tonight at 6 o'clock. The link is in the chat. We will also have an in-person session on Saturday. If you can't make those, the video from tonight's meeting will be made available and uploaded to the DDOT website. We will share it in our newsletter, and open comment will be available for about a month or so. So there is ample time for you to give feedback around ways we can improve safety, bring about a road diet to South Dakota, in order to save lives. I want to just underscore that that is the goal. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this month's edition of the Ward 5 Monthly Public Safety Call, and I look forward to being in touch. Thank you.